Albert Einstein once said that imagination is more powerful than knowledge because our imagination is our preview of our life's coming attractions. So this will be a little basic preview. So I wrote a book called Big Game Hunting, Networking with Billionaires, Executives, and Celebrities. I travel all around the world and country talking about networking, branding. I just came back from Israel and Palestine where I had a great opportunity to coach 16 startups on branding and strategy for the US consulate for Jerusalem. We talk about networking. My presentations are all about aiming higher. So imagine you go to an event that costs $20,000 to go, or the Milken Conference that costs $12,500 to go. So if you go to those type of events, what kind of opportunities will you have when last year when I went, Richard Branson is there, and Bill Gates is there, and Charlize Theron is there. So my first question to you is, aim higher in your life, because if you don't aim higher, you'll never get higher. Too many times when I meet people, they're like, well, Chris, what do I say to a billionaire or a celebrity? I don't know what to say. It goes beyond what you say. It's about what you listen to. It's about what you project, and it's about the confidence you want to give to people and what you want to give to them in their life. How do you serve them? So I'm just going to go over a few things, and then when you come back in 6 weeks, I'll have an actual presentation. So first thing is this. We all want to make more money. We all want to grow businesses. But if you want to read a great book, this is Ray Dalio, who will actually be at the Milken Conference next week. He's the most successful hedge fund manager in the world. And in his book called Principle, which you can download for free at his website, bewater.com, he says, work for what you want. It seems so simple, but so many of us live the lives of our parents, of our girlfriend, of our boyfriend, of our wife or husband, and we don't really work for what we want. And for me, whenever I go out to network, I have very specific goals in my mind, and I encourage you to do the same. Because what's the point of working in the room? Because we've all heard that phrase, oh, I gotta work the room, Chris. I got this stack of business cards. Yeah, I'm working in the room. That's a waste of time if you're in the wrong room. So the first question is, find those right rooms. And when you get to those right rooms, know in your mind, what are you there for? Who do you want to meet? Before I wrote this book, my clients were primarily people who made $100 million and up, 40 years old and older, primarily male. So if I meet people, I know in my mind who I want to meet. Philanthropically, I started a homeless youth program, the only one of its kind at the largest private shelter. I convinced Elon Musk to come down to the worst part of town on a Monday night and interview for a half hour. Know what you want from a philanthropic standpoint. Lastly, personally, I went to a wedding for my cousin in Boston a few years back, and sitting next to me on the Acela train, anyone from the East Coast? East Coast. So I'm from New York originally. All my family's in New York. So I go to a wedding in Boston, on the train Acela, going back from Boston to New York City. Sitting next to me was a gentleman named John, who's going to DC. And John turned out to be a former Navy SEAL officer, a sniper, and he was on 500 missions. I'm like, this guy is cool. So I thought, you know what? Cool people do cool things. Interesting people do interesting things. Even though he was a consultant, I didn't know how we were going to do business, because oftentimes when we meet people, the first question you ask is, what do you do? And you pigeonhole yourself, or you pigeonhole someone else. In his case, I really didn't care what he did. I just knew he was interesting, so we stayed in touch. He lives in DC. I had a friend named Corinne who lived in LA. She's a law student. She was going to go to DC. And I said, hey, Corinne, you should talk to John. He's very well connected. He's actually part of the Council of Foreign Affairs. And she did. And it turned out they ended up dating, and now they're married. So the point of networking, if you look at it from a very ordinary standpoint, I gotta go networking, Chris. I gotta go networking. I gotta get these business cards. I gotta make more business, right? But you look at it from what I call big game networking, which is, what do you want to do in life? What kind of big opportunities do you want to have? How can you have fun in life? Because if you're doing all this stuff for business and you talk about how much money you make and how much ROI, that's great, right? Again, we all want to make more money. But what are you doing for the world? What are you doing for your community? And when you think about the why, the purpose, then you can go and approach yourself to anyone in the world, literally. So think about that. Anywhere you go, what's the business point, the philanthropic point, and the personal point? And if you might say, well, Chris, I don't really have a lot of time to do philanthropic work. If you commit 1 hour every week, that's 0.6% of your time in a week. We have 168 hours. You have 0.6% of your time to change someone's life. And we have no excuses, because if Elon Musk can come to the worst part of town, which, by the way, with his security detail, he has a security detail that comes with him, so no one has excuses. 1 hour, you can change a person's life. So I really encourage that, because most of the really high-level functions I go to, they all are philanthropic. It doesn't matter how much money you have, they all are philanthropic. Next point is this: who do you want to meet? Left-hand side, I like to use acronyms. If anyone has difficulty memorizing things like I do, there's a great book called Moonwalking with Einstein. When you create acronyms, it helps you remember things. So my acronym for this is know who you want to meet. On the left-hand side, mentors, investors, clients, employees or employers, or strategic partners. Again, in your mind, if you're crystal clear on who you want to meet, you go to places, you already know who you're going to meet, so you can spend the time meeting the people that you want to meet. Be specific, be clear, be strategic. Next is, where do you find them? I already mentioned the Global Clinton Initiative. I actually plan out my whole year, so I know exactly where I want to go, because you're better off prefacing, qualifying, researching these events, because what do most of us do? Oh, Chris, I'm going to go to an event because it's free, or it's convenient, or maybe because the traffic's not so bad at a certain time, or maybe because my friend told me. What I encourage you to do is you plan out your whole year, because what's the point of going to 10 events and getting 100 business cards? Because when you get home, you're going to just look at those business cards and you wonder, like, who are these people? Right? If you go to one event, like something like that, and meet 10 people, you're much better off building a business from that crowd. I went to the Milken Conference last year. I met 2 clients there. One was Operation Hope, which is a nonprofit. I spoke at their global conference in Atlanta in January. And then when I was there, I secured another client from Alaska who was so impressed with my speaking that she said, oh my gosh, Chris, I hope you can come to Alaska. And I'll be speaking in front of 300 principals for the whole state of Alaska. But if I wasn't at the Milken Conference, I wouldn't have met these C-level executives. Because the point I'm getting at is that whole room, 95% are C-level executives, as opposed to going to events that you don't know what level they're at. So where do you find them is creating a whole calendar of events. And in this case, even if you don't go to these events, because some of them are quite expensive, it's having the mindset. So if I say a big gamer is a person of influence, if you meet someone and they say, oh yeah, I was just at Davos, and you don't even know what Davos is, that's kind of hard, because the Davos is like the Super Bowl of CEOs, heads of states, and billionaires. And so when you meet people, if you're not even aware of certain basic terms, it's kind of hard for you to build your business if you want to meet those types of people. JPHRO, that's where I met Elon Musk after the charity for Sean Penn. Any type of nonprofit that raises over $1 million, pretty good nonprofit to go to. And even though there's 1.5 million nonprofits in the country, there's only a select few that really cater to the high end. For instance, has anyone heard of the Robin Hood Foundation? What is the Robin Hood Foundation?
It's a nonprofit organization in New York that's, from what my friends told me, they were auctioning a car almost 5, 6, 7 times and just giving the money right back to charity.
And what's your name? Jim. Jim. Let's give Jim some love. So Robin Hood Foundation, it's Paul Tudor Jones, hedge fund guy, a lot of billionaires, and they want to eradicate poverty in New York City. Their charity last year, in one night, raised $101 million in one night. So again, let that sink in. You want to focus on building your business, you want to meet more affluent people, focus on these events, and even if you don't go, you're mindful of who does go, and you're mindful of who does get involved with those things. Because you don't just raise $101 million if you don't have a lot of billionaires in the room. And it's consistent. I've been to many of those, and I know Christoph has too. And he knows, he's nodding his head. So know the events to go to, because otherwise it's hard for you to find the right people to work with, or work for, or be like. Step 4. What do you say is a question I get asked most often. Chris, what do I say if I meet Charlize Theron or Brad Pitt? More importantly is, when I read Eric Schmidt's book when I was coming back from Tel Aviv, he wrote a book called How Google Works, and it's a 55,000-word book, 260 pages, but there's 11 words in that book that most stood out. And those 11 words were, the most important business skill anyone can learn is, anyone want to guess? The most important business skill we can learn as a business person. Interviewing. which is the same thing as listening for what you want from a person. Now again, we all know that, but how many of us qualify asking questions, asking a person who they're about, instead of just yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping, listening to their interests, listening to their relationships. And it goes beyond my opinion, by the way. There are 4 happy chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and serotonin. If I asked, tell me the one person you most like spending your time with, and this one woman said, oh, I love spending time with my swing partners, because every morning at 8 o'clock, I swim with my swing partners, and if I don't swim, I just don't feel right. And her whole face lit up. And so when you talk about their interests and their relationships, literally the physiology changes. They might not even know why they remember you, but they'll know that they felt really good when they're with you if you focus on their interests and their relationships. I'll give you a very specific example. I was at an art gallery in Beverly Hills last year. I met Terry Hatcher because I'm always about meeting people that are influential because I want to do a lot of good in the world. Terry Hatcher's there, actress from Desperate Housewives, which I don't watch. But I did watch Lois and Clark back in the day, and I was like, woo, she's like hot, but she's like, that's 20 years ago. But her daughter was there, named Emerson. Emerson's 17 years old. Emerson volunteers at the Children's Hospital. Emerson loves to give back. I said to Terry and Emerson, hey, why don't you come to the homeless youth program I started? But think about that. She has no clue who I am, but next time I see Terry Hatcher, will she remember some random guy that knows her daughter's name, how old her daughter is, what her daughter does? Pretty important if you want to build rapport. If you don't remember it, write down notes. But it's all about what are their interests, what are their relationships. Stop talking about yourself, stop talking about how amazing you are. Focus on them if you want to focus more on the affluent crowd. That's a character for those of you who are Chinese. Any Chinese people in the house? My people in the house? 3 people. So I'm from New York City, born and raised. I used to hate going to Chinese school for 13 years, 3 hours a week for 13 years, abhorrent experience. But looking back, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful because the Chinese language is a powerful, sophisticated language. This character is a character for listen. On the left-hand side, you have the character for ears. Right below that is king. Right to the right of that is you. Right below that is eyes. Right below that is the one sign, which is you're listening with undivided attention. You're not checking your smartphone. You're not looking at the laptop. Or you're not looking at the TV. You're focusing on that person. But lastly, and the most important thing, which a lot of us don't do, we don't listen with an open heart. We listen with the point of getting something instead of giving something. So when you look at people and you want to listen more, it's not just with your ears. It's with your eyes and with your heart. If Terry Hatcher didn't effusively talk about her daughter, and I wasn't listening with my heart, I wouldn't know that she really cares for her daughter. She wasn't just there because she had to be there as a mother. She was like boiling with like love for her. But remember this because it's so important to listen. We do it so little now because our smartphones are so powerful, we're so overstimulated and hyper-connected. But I highly encourage you to consider listening more because how do you help someone if you don't know who they are? Especially in the housing market. You can talk about how amazing the deck is, how amazing the pool is, how many square footage it is. And if you don't even ask them who's living there, why do you want this house, why do you want this area, I see these most basic things that aren't asked. And I speak to a lot of realtors. I just spoke to a luxury real estate conference a few months ago in Puerto Rico, and like, they all just kept talking about the surface stuff, and very few people talked about the deeper stuff, which are who is living in the house, why are they living there, and get to know their people, their family members. It's so basic, but I don't see it often. Lastly, how do you stand out? Oh, Chris, I hear what you're saying. I know where to go now. I'm going to learn some of the lingo. But after you meet these people, how do you stand out? So this is the Art of Elysium event last year. It cost $5,000. It was at the Santa Monica airport. They rented out the whole wing. This is Johnny Depp. He honestly is probably one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life. Because I think he like actually walks with slow motion. He's like, he's not a tall guy. I'm actually taller than him, but he walks like he's like a slow motion walk here. And it didn't hurt that he had a bodyguard in front of him and a bodyguard behind him and a beautiful, I think it's his girlfriend at the time, I don't know if they're married, Amber Heard next to him. So it's not hard to look cool and be confident if you're Johnny Depp. But for you, I have something what I call a Depp walk. If you walk into a room, and your shoulders are slouched, and you're frowning, and you're looking down, why would anyone bother talking to you? But if I roll my shoulders back, and I stand up straight, and I speak clearly and confidently and concisely and purposefully and persistently and fervently, will you remember me? Because how many of us go to rooms and we get all these business cards again, and you walk out, and I want to ask you this one question. Will they remember you? Not just for the room, but in life. Will they remember you? Because if you don't stand out, why do you expect your clients to stand out? Why do you expect the people in your life for you to be remembered? Because it's the basic things that if you don't know who you are, if you don't know your purpose, if you don't know who you want to meet, how do you stand out? I got Elon Musk to the worst part of town because I was the only person in that room, and granted, in that room was like some of the most powerful people in the world, like Oliver Stone and Charlize Theron and all these people, but no one can say I started the only homeless youth program of its kind at the largest private shelter in the country. I took 8 seconds to say one thing that no one can say in the whole world. So I challenge all of you, what can you say to someone else? And it doesn't have to be nonprofit, because I often hear, well, Chris, I don't have a nonprofit. I don't have it either. I have a volunteer program within a nonprofit. All I'm saying is, so much of our limitations are in our mind. And what I encourage you to do is focus on your brand, focus on your story, because if you want to succeed in business and in life, in your community, you have to stand out. Thank you so much.